Hi, I'm Kathy Goodall.
I'm Genesis Etienne.
Welcome to episode 2 of
Focused on 40.
Wow. So thank you for joining us. We, as stated in our first episode, thought that moving into our 40s was a very pivotal time in our lives, and so many things happened. And so we thought it was important for us to create a safe space where we can come together and have meaningful conversations around how our lives are actually impacted at 40.
Absolutely. And our lives are impacted in so many different ways, right? I mean, I feel like just in the last year or two, things started changing. My body started changing. My parents started changing, relationships started changing, my friendships got better. And some of my friendships ended. A lot of things also ended, right? So I believe that turning 40 was really crucial in deciding how I was going to move forward with the rest of my life versus how we had been living and what life has been like prior to this age in time.
So this episode, we're going to be focused on what some of the changes are that happened in our lives leading up to 40, and maybe some things kind of culminated at 40. We made some decisions, probably decisions that we never thought we needed to make before, or we weren't brave enough to make before. And so we just want to have a conversation around, what are some of the changes that have happened since we've turned 40. And of course, Jen is the lychee specialist, so she makes the best lychee martinis.
Cheers,
right?
guys.
It's not a martini glass, but hey, it works.
It gets the job done, guys. It gets the job done. So we encourage you to, whenever you're watching, pour a little something. It makes the hour a little bit livelier. It makes our time a little bit livelier.
Drink some tea.
But definitely be paying attention, because we hope to be, talking about things that are going to be really important, not only for us, but for women, for people in our age group, for people kind of dealing with the same kinds of things that we're dealing with, which are a combination of a lot of things, right? So I think it's really important that we all get together to talk about some of these things.
So Jen, what do you think are some of the things that, like, major changes that happened leading up to and at 40?
My 30s.
Mm-hmm.
My 30s were like really incredibly dynamic, right? I was in grad school, I had babies, I got married, I got divorced, I got another graduate degree. I had friends, I lost friends, and I find myself here. I think that the biggest thing that changed was love of self, definitely accepting who I am, my flaws, who people are, right? Being able to really put people into perspective, and to put them in place in my life, right? I think that everybody kind of had equal space at one point in my life. Everybody was really important. Everything was really great. But I think at 40, when you look back, some of those friends are not around anymore, right? My relationships with my parents have changed. I think that my level of tolerance has changed for all types of things for my...
Okay, but I think we need to pause, because I think that you've just said so much and it's like you're just flowing.
We're going.
And so we need to kind of dial it back and break it down a little bit. So you talked about your relationships changing. You talked about people being on the same level and everybody having the same level of importance in your life. How do you think that changed, and what was the catalyst that made you realize that everybody doesn't function in the same way? Everybody doesn't deserve the same level of importance. What do you think are some of the things that happened that made you more aware of that reality?
So it's interesting, and I think that's struggle, right? I think struggle is a big, huge part of the way that things kind of realign themselves. When you find yourself in a tough time in your life, when you find yourself in a financially or in a health-wise tough time in your life, when you find yourself in a relationship tough time in your life, or with your children, right? All of these different things really help to kind of like reevaluate who's there, who's not, who's really important, and who is beneficial, right? Who is going to help me to be able to deal with things better? Who's going to be able to be my sounding board? A lot of my friendships have gotten better, right? My real friendships have gotten better. Right. But a lot of friends who were not that important, or a lot of friends who
or people.
Yeah.
I think we use the word friend very loosely a lot of the time. And sometimes we don't really understand the value of what a friendship is. So we have acquaintances. There are people in our lives that are acquaintances or co-workers or associates that we use the word friend to express who they are, but they're not actually our friends.
No, it's true. It's absolutely true. Even family, right? Even your family relationships change with struggle. So I think that those are some of the huge catalysts that help for people to kind of redetermine, if that's a word, who's gonna be here now, who's important now. And unfortunately, sometimes it comes with tough times.
Yeah. And you know what, too? I think for me, my experience has been, it's not necessarily just tough times. I think sometimes you start to pay attention more to who people are. And you realize that some relationships give more than others. And some relationships just take way more than others. And I think I had managed to really do an assessment of which relationships are mutually beneficial, which ones are always taking, and which ones actually give.
Absolutely.
As well as take.
Absolutely.
And I think all relationships at this stage in our lives, we want to be mutually beneficial. And I think that there's so many, understanding the dynamic of different relationships. You have a mentor-mentee relationship where the mentor is obviously going to be giving more than the mentee, just because you're in a different place in your life, you're at a different stage in your life. But for people that are supposed to be at the same level as you, meaning your friends, you have a certain level of rapport that you're supposed to have with them, whether it's emotionally giving or taking,
absolutely,
whether it's financially sharing, spiritually giving or taking. Who are the people in our lives that are helping to nurture who we are? Who are the people in our lives that are helping us to grow? Because you don't want people that are just going to be yes people and that are just fun and a party.
And I think that growth, right? And who's growing with us and who's growing in the same trajectory as us is also a big, huge, part of who we decide is going to be with us for the long run. Who's going to be with us? Who's going to help us to make decisions? Who's going to be part of I usually use the word like a board, right? Who's part of our board? Catherine is a part of my board, right? Whenever I have spiritual issues, if I have any issues with money, if I have any issues with my career, I know that I have a strong group of associates, girlfriends, family members who I can go to if I need that extra support or that extra security.
Yeah.
But I look around and the same people who were around 5 years ago or 2 years ago are not around now.
And I think that's an important point though, that everybody should to take the time to stop and think about who are on your advisor board, who are the people in your life that you can go to for different reasons. So whether it's for financial advice, whether it's for spiritual advice or guidance or accountability is something that's extremely important as we get older. And at any age that you are in your life, if the earlier you can start to have good accountability, is the better off you'll be. So don't wait like us until you get to 40 and realize that
it's important.
Yeah, right? Maybe some people we didn't need to have along the way.
Correct.
Maybe some people were just there for a good time. And it's okay to have people in your life that are just there for a good time, but know that they're only there for a good time and don't expect more from them.
And be okay with outgrowing people. That's another thing that changed at 40, right? When I was in my 30s and in my 20s, I felt bad for outgrowing people. I felt bad for wanting to do more. I felt bad for my friends who were not doing the same thing or my acquaintances who were not doing the same things that I was. I didn't want to feel bad, right? You kind of dim your light a little bit so that the people around you are comfortable. And now I don't give a damn.
Yeah.
If you're not growing with me, if we're not on the same kind of trajectory, if we're not looking at the same type of growth moving forward in our lives.
So this is a good time to transition into the knowing who you are and owning who you are that you mentioned before. So tell me some of the things, or tell us some of the things that changed in terms of knowing who you are and more importantly, owning who you are. Like what was some of the steps that you took or some of the realizations that you had that helped you to understand that this is something that needed to happen?
Definitely growing in my education, as a therapist, I help for people to live their best lives. I help for people to get through some of the hardest times in their lives. And we're no exception, right? Mm-hmm. Regular us, we're no exceptions. So that was definitely a part of that. Being okay with myself, right? Just being alone a lot, when we're younger, I think we're not that completely comfortable. I don't know that we are fully aware of our passions. I don't know that we're fully aware of our gifts, right? I know that my relationship with God helped for me to fully step into who I am and be completely okay with that. And know that I'm not perfect, right? I'm not the most gorgeous. I'm not the most smart, but I am perfectly enough, and I'm enough for the people who love me. And that's part of it, right? Not necessarily if I'm not enough for you, that's your problem. And that took for me a long time to learn that I don't have to please everybody, that not everybody's going to be on my team, that not everybody wants the best for me, right? And so I needed to take an inventory of who's who, of who I am, and how those two things come together to create like a great life for me, for my kids, for my friendships. But that takes time,
This is funny because I was just reminded of a story of an incident that happened just last week or over the weekend with you. So we are traveling and I fell asleep on Jen. But because she's such an independent woman and she knows who she is and she owns who she is, she doesn't need somebody to follow her to go and have a meal or to have a drink by herself, right? So she went downstairs to have a meal and a drink by herself. And what happened?
Nothing happened. I had a wonderful time. I had a great meal. My girlfriend slept. She was able to catch up on the rest that she needed.
No.
I sat outside for half an hour.
No. We're not talking about that. So a gentleman walked up to her at a bar. He was a black man. And what did he say to you?
He basically said, so we are in Denver, which is a predominantly white state part of town. And there weren't many people of color in the bar. And the gentleman came up to me and said, I wanted my white friends want to make sure that the other black person in the room feels comfortable. So I came over to talk to you.
And my Jen said, well, I'm comfortable anywhere I go.
I'm completely comfortable wherever I'm at right now.
And I think that is important for us to highlight, right? So we're definitely going to be diving into topics around what it is to be a woman of color. Not just a person of color, but a woman of color, which is a totally different dynamic, right? In a world that is male dominated in the respective fields that we're in. And how we navigate that space, but a big part of that was coming into who we are and knowing who we are and owning who we are.
Yeah.
You talked about your spiritual walk helping to remind you of who you are and to shape who you are. And I think same is true for me. I found myself in my 20s in a relationship that was very abusive, emotionally, physically, and it wasn't something that I talked about. It wasn't something that I shared. It actually made me isolate and alienate myself from the people that love me, because obviously the people that love you don't want you to be in this situation. And then I pull myself away, sheltering myself and them away from it, because of course you're embarrassed, and I had to go through a journey of finding myself again. And for me, I had to go on that journey through my spiritual walk as well, reminding myself of who God created me to be, reminding myself of
that you're perfect.
Yeah, He made me
You're
exactly
perfect.
how I am to fulfill the purposes that He created us for.
Absolutely.
And so being able to embrace that and own that, I think, didn't come until later on in my 30s. And of course, like Genesis said, we're all a work in progress. This is a daily commitment to growth and improvement and development of ourselves. But having the right people around you along that journey is such a critical part of it. And what you are filling yourself with also matters.
Absolutely.
And so, we live in an Insta age, right? Where everything is right now. And we spend so much time on social media looking at everybody's highlight reel and comparing ourselves to everybody's highlight reel.
Oh my God.
It's like, finally we get to 40 and all of a sudden we have this revelation that this is not real life.
It's not about the likes,
right?
Right?
Seriously. I mean, we're posting waking up out of bed on our bedhead because we had the best fun last night. And people are like fully made up, all dolled up, presenting their best foot, and it's so freeing.
I don't give a damn.
Isn't it freeing?
Yeah.
It's so freeing to just know who you are and own it.
So part of my work and part of being a parent, right, is to try to instill in my children that they are perfect And in order for me to do that, right, because children go through questions and they go through peer pressure and they go through, I have an 11-year-old, he's going through puberty, you know, and he's not sure what's cool. And if I look good, mom, and maybe I have a pimple and, you know, do I smell weird? And every day I have to teach these young men that they are perfect, right? That they're going to go through things, but that they're perfectly made. And in having to do that for them in the last 11 years, it's helped me to also live that, right?
Yeah.
I also feel like I may not be perfect, but I'm perfect. And I help my clients.
Perfectly imperfect.
Perfectly imperfect. And being okay, right?
Yeah.
I know what my imperfections are. And some things I'm completely okay with. And other things I'm going to work and try to improve, right? Because I don't want to be stuck and just feel proud of even the things that I know I need to improve. You know,
and I think that's a really important point, you know, because being perfect doesn't mean that there's no room for growth, right? Being perfect means that you accept yourself for who you are, and you know. So I think that self-awareness is something that we have had the privilege of getting really comfortable with.
Absolutely.
In moving into our 40s, and like Jen said, you know, understanding where you are, what your strengths are, what your not so strong points are, what are the areas that you know you need to actually work on and make an effort to develop, and what are the ones that you've just accepted and know that, look,
I'm a work in progress, right? I think people have a hard time with a work in progress. And it is because I think we live in an Insta age where we are expected to always be on. We're always expected to be perfect. We're expected to have it all figured out. And we are so far from that. Like, we're still human beings. You know, we still have daily struggles. We still, even in this age of Instagram and filters, right? And being able to look perfect from one moment to the next. We're also at a time where people are the most depressed that they've ever been. You know, people are having the hardest time ever, you know, and a part of that is self-acceptance. I mean, filters, man, we can have a whole conversation on these filters.
I mean, look at us. We look like our hair has, we haven't combed our hair today, did we, Jen?
We decided to wear matching little sweaters, and then that was that. But we are living in a world where we're highly expected to be on and be perfect all the time. And man, that's a lot of pressure, you know.
You know, and we talk about this Insta world, right? But fast forward to 2020 when like the whole world shut down and COVID happened.
And so many people reevaluated their lives and started really paying attention to the things that were important.
I mean, I am the first one to tell you that COVID transformed my life in a way that at first I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to survive it, because I was living in Jamaica by myself, locked up in a house for 4 months with no interaction with the outside world, period. And I'm a marketer, right? So I'm used to an extremely fast-paced environment where I'm going all the time, I'm doing all the time, I'm interacting with people all the time, to not seeing anyone, not doing anything, being locked up in a house for 4 months on quarantine, lockdown, because Jamaica was on lockdown, by myself.
Talk about self-inventory.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I started counseling immediately because I was literally going to go crazy.
Well, but again, right, it kind of goes back to what you had asked me about, and it's struggle, right? So you spoke about your relationship in your 20s, you're talking about COVID now. And sometimes it's the most difficult times in our lives that are the propellers, right? They're the catapults for taking us to where we need to go. Like that struggle is such a part of what we need. And in my sessions, I always tell my clients, if you guys understood what comes after the struggle, you would feel so much more comfortable in it. But that's, you know, but we're human beings.
Hindsight is always 2020,
right?
Yeah. And I think understanding that everything is a process and being willing to go through the process is the most important thing. So even if, you know, like therapy for me was new, even though I have somebody that's very close to me that's an actual therapist, I've always been good at compartmentalizing and just putting something in a box so that I can move forward in another area. And I didn't realize until spending that time with myself how many life experiences I've gone through that I just didn't take the time to process. Everything from the death of my best friend to transitioning in corporate to being sexually assaulted by somebody that I held in extremely high regard, which I don't talk about. And it caused me to leave one of the best jobs I've ever had. You know, climbing the corporate ladder, I would say, to becoming an entrepreneur leaving the guaranteed paycheck to figuring it out, moving to another country. There's just so many things that happened that, in that transition of me going from my 30s into my 40s, feeling like I was starting over from scratch.
Absolutely. It's a reevaluation of your values, right? What's important? How do I want to move forward in my life? What's important now? And the things that were important to me then are not important to me now. I would have never gotten on camera without my hair being straight. And now I embrace my curls because this is what God gave me.
Me too.
And I think that in addition to self-inventory and to being able to acknowledge that we are perfectly imperfect, gratitude, right? The fact that we even can sit here and have these conversations, the fact that we know that we are a work in progress, the fact that we have lives that are rich, and even if they have been areas of strife or of difficulty, again, that helps you to reevaluate what's important and to kind of rediscover what's really important to you and how you want to move forward and how you want to live the rest of your life. I'm sure that 4 months in a house by yourself was really, really tough. I can only imagine. I had two babies with me, but it was absolutely cathartic, right? I mean, you even starting therapy, and I'm a big, me, I'm going to say
big advocate for therapy.
I'm a big advocate for therapy because I think you need a mirror, I think you need a mirror to look at yourself.
An objective
mirror. Absolutely an objective mirror.
And
that's hard. It's hard to look at oneself. It's hard to look at your mistakes, right? Guilt and shame and the things that kind of keep us stuck. We can often just kind of like put to the side. And I think that time indoors with our loved ones or by ourselves really helped for those things to kind of come to the forefront. And look where we are now, right? So I think it's beautiful, even in the difficulty.
Yeah, and you talked about struggle being able to propel us to the next level, right? And to help us to grow. And I think it was during that time of introspection that helped me to realize who is important,
right?
What is important.
Who checked in.
Yeah. And even where I live. I mean, me being in Jamaica alone and all of my family being in the US, not being able to see them for a year and a half.
Wow.
Put life into perspective.
Absolutely.
Like, what's important? Do you want to be chasing a career in Jamaica, or do you want to be able to spend time and have experiences with people that you love?
Yeah. I think one of the things that we can talk about in these coming episodes is a life inventory, and really looking at all different types, because maybe your career was thriving, right? But maybe your relationships were hurting, or maybe your health is hurting, or your spirituality is hurting, or your relationship is great, but you haven't gone to the gym, or you've been eating poorly. So it's all of these things that we kind of have to take inventory of. And I think that 40 helped me to look at those things objectively and truthfully.
Yes.
Like, you know what, I do need help with this thing, or you know what, I do need to be better about this, or I need to let this other thing go, but I wasn't ready until now, I don't think, so that's the beauty of being focused at 40.
Yeah. So I think just to recap this episode, the things that we want you to take away is gratitude is a must.
Absolutely. Self-awareness is really important.
So spend the time to do a life assessment of what your strengths and your weaknesses are. Who's on your advisory board?
Absolutely. And put some really good board of directors up there. I have a really small group of people who I count on. She's almost like the board of directors. She's one of the big
chairman.
She's the chairman of the board. But yeah, I think it's really important that not everybody gets the same amount of you. And that's okay,
Yeah, look at the relationships that you have in your life and do an assessment of which ones are mutually beneficial and which ones you feel are taking all the time. And I would definitely urge you to have a conversation with the people that are always taking. And if not, maybe just distance yourself. It's not about malicing somebody or maligning them.
Sure.
It's not about having ill will or anything like that. It's just about preserving your space.
Putting yourself, right? Nobody is more important than you.
Yeah, it's not loving the person in the list. It's just understanding that you have to create boundaries.
Loving yourself more.
Yes, I love me more. So guys, we look forward to seeing you in our next episode. And we hope that this episode was useful to you.
Yes, and if you guys have any feedback, if you guys have any questions about anything we spoke about today, if you guys just want to give us an opinion on anything that you heard, please, it's focuseddat40@gmail, FOCUSET at FORTY at gmail.com,
or comment below.
Yes.
And just let us know what you think, some of your thoughts, share your thoughts, and also some of the topics. And if you want us to do a deeper dive, we're definitely going to do a life audit. or a life inventory, as Genesis calls it. I call it a life audit. Same thing.
She's got an MBA.
So that, we can have a deeper discussion and a deeper dive into, and maybe that one will be live, so that you guys can join us and it will be a little more interactive. So we look forward to seeing you soon.
Like and subscribe.
Bye.
Bye.
And share.
Yes.